Bringing it back, Locked On NHL Game Night, a very special one here on the Locked On NHL channel. Tyler Feldman, I'm Cam Stewart. The Florida Panthers have done it for the second year in a row. You talked about it in the first segment, Tyler, that it felt like really after that first goal, that moment of magic from Sam Reinhart, it was really the Panthers' night. Let's start with Sam Reinhart. I mean, he was rewriting the history books in this game. He was your unsung hero, baby. Did you ever expect a 4-goal performance in a series clinching victory?
That's pretty crazy. 2 empty net goals, but that last one, he was on the ice again. He was on the ice, breaking the ice in the first
good point.
Scoring. And then that was a tough empty netter to give him 4. So, you get 2 empty net goals late. It kind of worked itself out. But hey, juicy rebound in the second period late. Bad play by Skinner.
How bad was that?
By Skinner. Reinhart makes him pay. So credit Sam Reinhart. They had the depth, and we've talked about that ad nauseum now at this point. But all around, Sam Reinhart is a prime example as to why Florida was able to win the Cup again this year, because they just had so many different guys that could perform on any given night. How about this for a stat to back that up? The Florida Panthers are the second team in NHL history to have 3 players score 5 or more goals in the same Stanley Cup Final. Sam Reinhart, Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett.
And what's crazy about that is I don't know that they're going to be remembered as one of these great offensive teams like you think of the 80s Oilers or even Lemieux's Penguins or some of those teams, but because it's not like they're such a good forechecking team that you don't think of them as this great skilled team like you would think of the Oilers, but they crushed them throughout.
They scored 90 plus goals throughout.
That's insane,
these
man.
Playoffs. I'm not sure there's a lot of teams that were able to do that throughout NHL history.
And speaking of NHL history, you ready for a heavy dose of that when it comes to Sam Reinhart? Because I'm going to throw a lot.
Knock me out, man.
4 goals in a Cup final game. It's the 6th player ever to do that. But back in the early days, guys used to run wild. Okay, 6th player to score 4 goals in a Stanley Cup final game, but the first one to do it since Maurice Rocket Richard. That was back in 1957. Sputnik was a distant thought. Okay, the last time we had somebody do this. And he's the first player with 7 goals in a Stanley Cup final since in 1985. Who was the guy, the center for the Oilers? Wayne Gretzky.
Mike Ditka. Oh.
Wayne Gretzky. 7 goals in a Stanley Cup final. He's the 4th player ever to do it alongside Gretzky, Mike Bossy, and Jean Beliveau. Like, that's pretty good company in there. Pretty good company. And he almost got another pretty cool record, which was that he would have scored the game-winning goal in the Cup clincher for the second year in a row. But that Vasily Podkolzin goal made it 5-1, which made Tkachuk's second goal, the second goal of the game scored by Matthew Tkachuk, ends up being the game winner.
How mad do you think Bobrovsky is? 28 saves. Could have had the shutout.
And he should have had a shutout, man. I know deserve doesn't count in hockey, but like you should have had the shutout. And it goes off Seth Jones's butt, and it's a weird bounce. He was awesome in this game, Bobrovsky. I mean, they couldn't get a shot up high on him, which is the only way to beat him. But he put together a pretty good Conn Smythe story at the end of it. If Bennett ends up winning it, I think it's probably Bobrovsky in second. Over Marchand, who looked like he had a real shot going into this game. But Bobrovsky was absolutely money in this series and will probably be buried a little bit in the headlines because of how great and how deep this Florida Panthers team is.
No doubt. And all the play in front of him, too, defensively. Florida was pouncing on pucks, diving, blocking shots. The effort was full speed ahead, start to finish in this hockey game. Heck, we talked about this before even taping the show, Cam, about Edmonton only leading for about 34 minutes of ice time throughout this entire series. Just utterly dominant. Utterly dominant. You do the math. I don't know if you have the number on your sheet of how much Florida was on top, but
it's a record, by the way.
It's around 260 plus minutes they were leading in this series, outscoring Edmonton 13-4 in the first period alone. Florida scoring 2 or more goals in the first period in every single game of this Stanley Cup final, while also holding Connor McDavid pretty much in check. Looking back to last year, McDavid was held scoreless in games 6 and 7, in pretty much the same situation this year. So that balance from your offense to defense and then your guy in between the net, we could go all night about just the balance and the domination that this Florida Panthers team is able to employ. And then you add in Brad Marchand winning a Stanley Cup 16 years after helping the Bruins win a cup back in 2011.
14, but 14. It's still pretty long. Yeah.
16.
14. 2011 to 2025.
What did I write? I can't do math. Yeah, you're right. You're right. 2011. Yep. That would, I wrote 16. That's the wrong number. That's simple math. We'll work on that, but glad to have you here to check on that.
This is what I'm here for, the ombudsman a little bit. 14 years apart. And by the way, I think a lot of hockey teams would have done this. I don't want to discredit a lot of other teams, but a real class move from the Panthers. I don't know if you saw the way they did the pass off, but Barkov did it as the captain. And then everybody else who hadn't won it before the next guy. I think Bobrovsky was the first one of the other group who had already won it to lift the cup. But Nate Schmidt doing it second, I mean, that was awesome. Like, that's the kind of stuff that gets you welled up as a hockey fan. Like, this was an afterthought. He's on an $800,000 contract, and he's the second one to lift the Stanley Cup.
Critical piece to helping the Panthers.
Huge, man.
Lift the Stanley Cup.
Huge.
And now I'm wondering, do they do it again? 3 straight?
That is a good question for the third segment of Locked On NHL Game Night. We're going to look at some parting thoughts. We're going to talk about the Conn Smythe winner, Sam Bennett, and then maybe pose a little question about what it's going to look like in the future. Maybe one for both of these teams. We're going to do it next on Locked On NHL Game Night.